I've had a number of clients and folks that I know in the industry, business owners, who've asked me about this term, stagflation. And people are asking about it because it's a term that has been thrown around in the media a lot lately as a result of Trump's tariff policy and the possibility of that policy leading to stagflation.
I haven't heard the term in years. Now I don't know anything about it.
If the large increases in tariffs that have been announced are sustained, they're likely to generate a rise in inflation, a slowdown in economic growth, and an increase in unemployment.
So stagflation is really a term that was coined in the 1970s when you had a decade that was broadly characterized by weak economic growth, yet high inflation. Two things that, are not necessarily commonly moving together. And so what stagflation is ultimately, the way I think about it, is that it's when the economy is not growing as fast as expectations would believe, but yet inflation is rising more than expectations. A really good recent example of this is 2022, which is essentially the first time inflation came back at a really high level in decades. So in 2022, you had the environment where the economy was not growing as fast as broad economic forecasters believed, or business people in general, but yet inflation spiked that year. And this was after all of the monetary and fiscal stimulus in the years during and after COVID.
The House just voted to more than triple these direct payments from $600 to $2,000.
So what happened that year? Stocks were down over 20%. So think about that. Why would stocks be down? If you relate it to this concept of first principles and think about it, all a stock is a fractional ownership of a business. So think about your own business. If your revenue is not growing as fast as you thought, but yet your costs are moving up much faster than you thought, that's clearly bad for the cash flows of the business since they would compress. And a business is valued on its current cash flows and future cash flows. So the value of that business, given this compression of cash flows, goes down. So it should be no surprise, given public stock markets are nothing but a collection of businesses, to see stocks not do well in that environment. So what does do well? So in the 1970s, you had a stagflationary environment where stocks actually underperformed what you could get in cash or a short-term US government bond for that entire decade. They did less than 6%, but since inflation was high, the rate on government interest was high, over 6%, so stocks did worse than cash. However, gold appreciated at a compounded rate of 31% per year for the entire decade. So to put that in real numbers, $100 of gold at the beginning of 1970 turned into almost $1,500, okay? Whereas $100 invested in stocks, the S&P 500, turned into around $180. One other asset class that did particularly well in the 1970s were commodities. So just a broad basket of commodities such as gold, copper, wheat, natural gas.
They call their song "I Hate to Wait in Line," and if nothing else, they make waiting a lot more pleasant for those in line.
We're taking our gas in the 5-gallon cans from the Hills Mobil's station. We're going to just keep it.
Why take gas, not money?
We're going to keep it and hoard it. Money's no good anymore. We've decided to use gas as currency.
Commodities increased over 20% per year all throughout the 1970s. So $100 in commodities turned into around $700. So again, far outperformance versus stocks. Let's go back to this 2022 example. In 2022, when stocks were down over 20%, commodities were up over 20%. So the idea is if the cash flows of businesses are compressing, you actually want to own the asset classes that are inflating, okay? So then the obvious question becomes, what does this mean for my business? Stagflation, as we pointed out, is a bad scenario for business, particularly if it's driven by tariffs. So let me give you an example. So say you have equipment, capital costs, or cost of goods sold, chemicals. If those chemicals are coming over from China and there's a large tariff that's applied or tax that's applied as those goods are imported, that's going to lead to a higher cost of goods that you're going to incur as a business owner. That's either going to increase your cost of goods sold, which is going to decrease your margins, or you're going to pass those costs increases along to your customers. If you do that and the overall economy is not growing as fast as we think it's going to, that means consumers are not likely doing as well as they thought they were going to.
Inflation is going up. Everything's getting more expensive. No matter what you do, as soon as you walk out of the house, everything's going up. Your gas bills keep going up. Electric bills, gasoline. You could name 1,000 things that are going up. Just everything's going sky high.
So when you go to pass on this price increase, there might be some pushback. You could see a scenario where you lose customers. Retention goes down, which means in order to grow as fast, you need to replace more customers. Replacing more customers costs more in terms of customer acquisition costs or marketing costs, which could further exacerbate a potential margin squeeze. So there's multiple factors that come into play in a stagflationary environment that not only impact asset prices of your investments, but more importantly, your business operations, your cash flow, which ultimately impacts your valuation of your business. And stagflation could lead to higher interest rates, which then that also leads into what multiple someone's willing to pay for your business. So there's a lot of cross currents to consider in a stagflationary environment, particularly one that's induced by tariff policy.